Aloha, I'm Kirsten Baumgart-Turner, and this is Sustainable Hawaii at thinktechhawaii.com, streaming live educational and civic engagement on the internet and Oceanic Channel 16. Today we're going to count down the top 10 energy events for Hawaii in 2015 and take a sneak peek at what's ahead next year. Here to help me is Jeff Mikulina, Executive Director of the Blue Planet Foundation, a nonprofit organization whose mission is to clear the path for 100% clean energy in Hawaii. Prior to working with Blue Planet, Jeff served as director of the Sierra Club for 10 years. His accomplishments in policy advocacy include successfully working to pass several legislative bills, including one that adopted a 100% renewable energy for Hawaii, a goal that we're going to talk about, setting a binding cap on Hawaii's greenhouse gas emissions, establishing a carbon tax on fossil fuel imports, requiring that all new homes use solar water heaters, requiring returnable deposits on all beverage containers, providing incentives for renewable energy use, establishing curbside recycling on Oahu, and increasing the funding of natural resources through tourism taxes. Jeff, welcome very much to our show.
Thanks,
I'm so
Kirsten.
glad to finally have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I want to make sure that we have a chance to count down all top 10 events that you helped make a list for. But before we do, I want to make sure that our audience gets to know you and Blue Planet a little better. So can you tell us how Blue Planet works, the kinds of things that you do?
Sure. So we're a locally based nonprofit organization. Our mission is to clear the path for 100% renewable energy for Hawaii and beyond. So we're very much a community-based organization, looking to partner with others who are interested in this mission and see Hawaii as we see it, which is a global role model for clean energy solutions.
What are some of the ways that you partner with people?
A number of ways on policy advocacy, which we'll be talking a bit about today, and some of those successes. Again, finding like-minded organizations, or even folks who this is tangential maybe to their main mission. For example, we partnered with the IBEW, the union that represents the folks that work at the power company, at the utility, and they helped promote the 100% renewable energy measure, in part because they saw their industry transitioning and the need for them to sort of transition to this new utility world. But really all groups, from kids up to well-established local organizations. We're all in this together. Energy touches every aspect of our lives, and so we're stronger together as we move forward.
I know some of the organizations with kids that you work with are Kupu and others.
We do?
Maybe mention what some of those projects are.
Sure. One thing we just finished up was called the Student Energy Summit, and we had 100 kids from 34 schools across all of the islands come in. There we had some Kupu folks there. We also had the Energy Accelerator help out there. Local company Oceanit led us through a design thinking seminar. Hawaii Energy helped sponsor that. Hawaiian Airlines was part of that as well. So really, again, the more the merrier, and this is an issue that touches everyone.
Well, it's been exciting ever since Blue Planet was founded, how many years ago?
About seven years ago.
To see how much you've been a catalyst for bringing all the different organizations together on very focused issues. And
Thanks.
one of the things that we like to do at Think Tech Hawaii is to make sure that our audience is aware of the activities that are going on in support of sustainable development in Hawaii. And we have had many of your partners on the show, and will continue to do so. So thank you for being the catalyst in many ways to these.
Great.
Let's get to our top 10.
Okay.
We're going to show some slides that Jeff helped provide. And our number 10 we're going to start with is the 100% solar-powered plane. The Solar Impulse landed safely in Hawaii from Nagoya, traveling almost 3,000 miles in 74 hours. I think that's about 5 days and 5 nights. Tell us why this is so important to Hawaii.
First of all, when you look at this image, this is pretty cool. The two folks on the edges there are riding bicycles. This is how slow the thing landed. But this is really, it's symbolic, but it's also just a huge technological breakthrough. This is a plane that's seeking to fly around the world using nothing but solar energy. It'd be the first time in the history of aviation, in the history of Earth, to have an airplane fly around the globe using nothing but solar. As we all know, we don't have solar at night, so there's batteries inside this that enables it to use that solar energy 24 hours a day. And that's the breakthrough. When we think about solar energy, folks always think about limitations. Oh, it's great until there's a cloud or until the sun sets. But we're beyond that now, and we'll talk a little bit more about it later as well. But this is living proof of that, and it's pushing the edge of the envelope.
And the fact that they had their longest leg from Japan to Hawaii allowed them to work out a lot of the technology kinks. And so it's pushing the edge of developing, as you mentioned, storage and other things, but it also brought a lot of attention to Hawaii.
That's right.
And we've been trying to establish ourselves as the sustainability state, particularly with regard to our cutting-edge renewable energy policy.
Right.
So I thank you for picking this one. I think it might have fallen through the cracks.
Yeah, no, I think it's cool, and I think, again, you're right, it brought some focus to Hawaii. This isn't a Hawaii project necessarily, but I know they received a lot of aloha when they arrived here. And people looked at that and they think, come on, let's be realistic. There's one guy sitting there for 5 days in total discomfort. This isn't real. But you think of the original Wright flyer in 1903, and people looked at that and said, oh, that's great, but forget it. We're never going to have what we have today, which is essentially, hundreds of people in an airplane flying, near the speed of sound. So I think this is that cutting edge, and it's a portent of what may come.
And then number 9, sustainability energy event for Hawaii is the PUC's decision regarding the PSIP, the Power Supply Improvement Plan. And
we'll try to avoid a lot of acronyms.
I think we need you to unpack that one for us.
Sure. So the utility goes through their planning process. This is Hawaiian Electric, and the regulator, the Public Utilities Commission, blesses that plan. But the latest iteration, the PUC had some concerns about the direction of the utility, and so they sent them back to the drawing board. The utility came up with a new set of plans over a 3-month period and filed those at the end of summer 2014. But at the fall of 2015, the Public Utilities Commission came back and said, these plans still aren't good enough. And I think it's important to highlight what the Public Utilities Commission thought was deficient, and it was a number of things. Number one was the utility wasn't doing enough to integrate low-cost renewable energy into the system. Our regulators wanted to see more of that. They weren't adequately justifying their proposed use of liquefied natural gas, importing a new fossil fuel from the mainland. And they weren't doing enough to really pivot to a new utility model of the future. They were still sort of stuck in that old model of where the utility produces the electricity and pushes it out to customers, as opposed to that new ecosystem where many of us will produce electricity, many of us will store electricity and provide different services to the grid, and the utility acts perhaps more like an Uber of electricity.
So I like that. I'm going to remember that.
So this is what the commission was asking for, but it's notable because it's really a pivot, I think, for our regulators to say, this isn't good enough. Show us a new plan. And that new plan will be developed hopefully over the next year, but the first round of comments is due in the middle of January of 2016.
And we, the public, have an opportunity to submit those comments, or is it only the interveners in the docket?
At any time, the public can submit comments to the Public Utilities Commission and let their voice be heard.
And where might our audience find the PSIP to be able to look at these details in the comments?
A little bit complex, but I think if you just Google, Public Utilities Commission, it's actually something called the Document Management System, so DMS. But
they could actually, I think, go on the PUC website, puc.org, and it's under hawaii.gov. I don't know if we can get that up here now, but certainly Googling the PUC decision regarding PSIP. Great, thank you. So number 8, Kauai's National Tropical Botanical Garden Weefficiency Project. the largest crowdfunding effort in Hawaii to date, correct?
It is. I think that still stands. But just a little background on this. This is a program of Blue Planet Foundation. What we were seeking to do is make it easier for nonprofits to do energy efficiency upgrades. Many nonprofits, nationwide, have the same challenge of wanting to reduce their monthly energy bill, but just not having that money up front to be able to pay for those improvements. So we thought we could turn to the crowd and say, hey, would you like to pledge a donation or a loan to a nonprofit? We call them loanations. And we'll put that money toward new lighting or new air conditioning that will save the nonprofit money. And as they save money, they will pay back that loan that you made, or that money will go back into the nonprofit's finances. So this National Tropical Botanical Garden, they're over on Kawaii. They do really cool stuff. They have a seed bank of indigenous and endemic plants. But they needed a new air conditioning system for that seed bank. And it was going to be expensive, about $280,000. But we put it out there, and sure enough, raised over $250,000 to pay for those improvements. They just got installed a couple months ago, and they'll be saving $60,000 a year, National Tropical Botanical Garden. And that savings will then pay back the people who made a loan.
And that's really significant for a nonprofit in particular. It may sound like not much money. The other thing that the NTBG is doing is Chipper Wickman, who leads the garden, is really spearheading the committee for hosting the World Conservation Congress this year.
Right.
And so they're doing a lot of very innovative cutting-edge things. Mm-hmm. So thank you for holding them up. It was great. Yeah, great example of working together. So number 7, and one that is dear to my heart, is the Pope's Encyclical. Pope Francis, as you know, has been out there on climate change. Tell us a little bit about why you chose him.
Sure. He's been out there on a lot of issues, but I think it was just really revolutionary for a lot of folks to hear, the leader of, over a billion Catholics globally, taking on this issue that's not always viewed as, historically, unfortunately, there's been a so-called debate around this issue, and yet here comes this, well-respected religious leader saying, no, this is serious, this is something that we need to address because it affects all of us. It particularly affects those who, can least afford to deal with the impacts of a changing climate.
It's one of the things that he holds up in particular is the inequitable impact of climate change. And last week with Evan Weber, we discussed what has been coined as climate justice. Mm-hmm. On this show, we've been talking about social justice issues regarding climate change, but I really like that term, climate justice, and it's about the fact that the poorest people are most impacted by climate change. And I'm going to read a quote by Pope Francis. He says that exposure to atmospheric pollutants produces a broad spectrum of health hazards, especially for the poor, and causes millions of premature deaths. He says that technology, which, linked to business interest, is presented as the only way of solving these problems. In fact, it proves incapable of seeing, and quote, the mysterious network of relations between things, and so sometimes solves one problem only to create others. I love that reference to the mysterious network of relations between things, what we call systems thinking. And I love that it's put within a general spiritual context, but not limited to Catholicism, which is one of the things that makes him such a great impact in the world, is he doesn't just speak Catholic religious speak, but speaks to the global community. Right. He's done an astounding job, I think, of transcending those otherwise siloed. Well, when we come back, we're going to share number 6, and we'll leave it as a mystery also. We'll be back in a moment.
Okay, this is Think Tech Hawaii, and it's Wednesday. Every Wednesday is Energy Wednesday here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy. 4 to 5 p.m. every Wednesday. Come and listen to us. And just to show you what I mean, I'm going to ask Sharon to tell us more.
Come and see us every Wednesday, as Jay said. And we have people like Jim Albers from HECO. here and co-host Ray Starling here every Wednesday. We not only go on Olelo and OC16, but also stream live. So please come visit us, hear about the latest in clean energy.
Okay, Jim, you've been here. You got any comment on all this?
As important as energy is in all of our lives today, this is a great forum and a great format to vet those issues. So I encourage everybody to listen in and participate.
Okay, Ray, what do you think for a close?
Well, I think this is the greatest show in the energy world here in Hawaii. You can come here every week, 1 hour, and catch the latest on what's happening and hear from the people who really know what's going on, like Jim Alberts. We appreciate your coming today.
Thank you.
Ray Starling, Sharon Moriwaki, Jim Alberts, and Jay Fidel here in Hawaii, the state of clean energy, 4 to 5 p.m. Wednesday. Aloha.
Aloha.
Hi, we're back with Sustainable Hawaii and Jeff Mikulina from the Blue Planet Foundation. We're about to count down further the biggest energy events for Hawaii in 2015. Number 6, crazy weather. Climate change delivers extreme highs and lows, as we've witnessed during this holiday season. What are some of the main events that you would like to share with us this year?
Sure. So this, you might not think of this directly as an energy event for Hawaii, but I think it's important because it's climate change is really coming home, and we're starting to feel the impacts of our fossil fuel consumption over the past century or longer. And you can see this chart that's up right now and shows the temperature anomalies or the differences in temperature in the first 3 quarters of 2015 against a long baseline temperature. And the red is hot, and you can see it's hot everywhere. Interesting, it's hot everywhere except that little blue piece off the tip of Greenland, which is even more concerning because that's largely due to the phenomena of the melting ice on the Greenland ice sheet that's changing some of that flow of the ocean currents up there. If you saw The Day After Tomorrow, that fictional movie that had a bit of science in it, but very little, that's exactly what happened in the movie, so it's kind of scary. But you know, these warmer temperatures, you have more energy in the atmosphere, and that's leading to all sorts of crazy events. It was certainly exacerbated this year with El Nino, but we saw stuff that was absolutely off the charts. We had 15 tropical cyclones in the Central Pacific, which was unprecedented. We had some of the hottest temperatures in Hawaii, and I think people felt it. Not just temperatures, but the slackening of trade winds, crazy downpour events.
Yeah, this summer we had almost no trade winds.
Right.
And that was never heard of before. And on Christmas Day, when I called my parents in Washington, D.C., it was warmer at 71 degrees than it was here that morning.
Yeah. But so looking at the bright side here, if anything, we hope that people can start to sort of wake up and say, something is different, this doesn't feel right. You know, we've heard about this climate change or global warming, but getting slight tastes of it and thinking we need to revolutionize our thinking about energy and do something different. It's not something in the future that affects someone else. It's something in the now that's affecting our lives.
And unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of shows about mitigating the impacts of those climate change because they're already here.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Well, let's go to number 5, which is Solar City's PPA with the Kauai Island Utility company, KIUC, for low-cost solar at night.
Cooperative.
Cooperative, thank you.
So
It's a cooperative.
going from bad news to really good news. This is kind of for the wonky energy folks out there, I'm sure you've read about this. It's a large solar farm, as we've seen a few in the islands over the last couple of years. But this one's different in that it comes with battery storage. The image you're seeing, by the way, isn't the actual facility. This is a different facility, which is representing what it may look like on Kauai. But this comes with storage. In fact, 52 megawatt hours of storage is what they proposed in this power purchase agreement that they signed with the cooperative on Kauai. And that's interesting, but what's really interesting is the price that they've set, which is essentially cheaper than oil, historically, oil-fired electricity on Kauai. So, you know, if there's still people thinking out there like solar's great, but what do we do at night? Here's your answer. We have cheap solar energy at night, or nighttime solar. And this is really a game changer. If we can sign deals and get electricity at that cost, when we need it most. And when we need it most is typically when folks come home from work, that sort of a power rush hour between 6 and 9 o'clock at night, when the sun goes down, and if you have solar at home and no battery, you're going to be drawing power from the grid. This is a facility that's going to be powering the grid in the evening. And so that's exciting.
And on one of our past shows, we had a UH researcher who's doing work on the inverters, smart inverters, that are helping us to load shift and be able to do a demand response so that we can indeed take advantage of solar during the nighttime.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'll be...
Yeah, good stuff. But
right.
Also an example of that and this of Hawaii being on that cutting edge and doing things that aren't happening elsewhere. And that's a role that I think that the islands can play.
Let's go to number 4. Governor Ige's determination that LNG does not fit within Hawaii's clean energy future. Why
So this is interesting. The conversation about whether or not we should import liquefied natural gas has actually been going on for decades. In the late 60s, there was a conversation, let's import this cheap liquefied methane to Hawaii and use it to stabilize our energy prices. That actually went away in the 70s. It came back around 2010, 2011, 2012. Hey, let's import liquefied natural gas, billed as a, quote, lower cost, domestic, and some folks say cleaner fossil fuel. The truth is we have concern about all those things for a number of reasons. Certainly the methane leakage is one of the biggest concerns that could really change the equation of, is it really cleaner or not?
And what are the issues with the methane leakage?
I'm sure most folks have heard of, the fracking and the gas extraction on the mainland, which has really, revolutionized that business and lowered the cost of natural gas on the mainland.
But the fracking itself comes with consequences
It
to
does.
environmental impacts.
It's part of the systems that the Pope was talking about. You poke one place and it shows up somewhere else. There, our biggest concern, again, it comes back to climate. Methane's a very potent greenhouse gas. And as they do this fracking, there's a lot of leakage of that methane into the atmosphere. So although methane burns cleaner at the actual burner than coal or oil, if you add in the whole system and the leakage from the fracking itself and the transportation, you might have a different equation where it's actually worse for the climate. But regardless, we're really focused on this as what's best for Hawaii in the long term. We have a goal for 100% renewable energy, and we should be putting all of our resources and attention on that goal. The governor seems to agree, and he came out, a few months ago, that was in September, saying that he doesn't see how LNG would fit into our clean energy future, and that all of our attention should be focused on 100% renewable energy.
And one of the reasons he gave is because there needs to be a significant infrastructure development for actually both for LNG, it's in the billions as we understand, and for renewable energy, it's an infrastructure issue in terms of being able to accommodate the grid and be able to transport the renewable energy. So either way, we're looking at infrastructure and technology advancements, and it's a question of where you put them and where you put both the manpower, the UH research and development dollars, as well as the utility and the taxpayer dollars into where we want our future energy to come from.
That's right. And those are tough choices to make. So do you invest in a fossil future or do you invest in a renewable future? And I think the governor is taking the leadership position and saying, hey, we're going to invest in a renewable future.
So our number 3 is very related to that because we chose number 3 as the proposed next era acquisition of Hawaiian Electric Utility. And we have a graph up here that just is from the next era profile. And it tells a little bit about next era. Maybe you could explain next era's prospects for what kinds of things it can bring in the merger and what kinds of issues have been raised about the merger.
Sure. First, just off the bat, we include this as number 3, not so much to talk about, the merits and what's going to happen, but just to really focus on, here comes this mainland utility looking to purchase Hawaiian Electric. This is the first time in the history of our 120-something-year-old, utility that this has happened. And so what it created was just a whole change in the dialogue. There's been more focus on the utility and clean energy and what Hawaii wants to do in the future in the past year than there has been for decades, if ever. I mean, how often do you see, the utility mentioned on the front page of the paper and all of this information coming out about, what sort of utility we want in the future? So in that way, this has been, I think, a very positive thing for Hawaii. It's just getting more focus on our energy system, our utility, and what we want in the future.
And it's certainly helped to shape the development of the Public Utilities Commission itself, because the commission has had to flex its muscles a little more and add to some deeper diving within the commission in terms of how it analyzes and how it conducts the meetings. There are many, many more meetings as a result of this, much more public input. So I think it's really helped shape how government responds to these issues within Hawaii and made us smarter and more on it.
That's a good point. Yeah, I would agree with that. So the chart you did have up there talked a bit about this company, NextEra, which has a number of, I'll say, facets to it. One is a utility, Florida Power and Light, that's based in the state of Florida. They also have a large renewable energy subsidiary component of that company that develops a lot of large-scale wind and solar energy. But there are different aspects of the company. Again, one a large utility, another one that develops natural gas, another one that's involved with renewable energy. And so I think the question that a lot of folks are asking here is, what are we going to get in Hawaii? Is it going to be that vertically integrated monopoly that they run in Florida, where they control all aspects of the utility system?
From generation to actual delivery within your household.
That's right. In fact, they go further. They go all the way to the wellhead. So that concerns many of us.
Explain what that means.
Owning the gas wells, the pipelines, the generator, the power lines, all the way to the plug in your house. So that's a truly vertically integrated monopoly. And maybe there's a different model for Hawaii. We've had a similar system, vertically integrated monopoly in Hawaii, but maybe there's one. We talked about the Uber of electricity. Maybe they're more in the business of moving electrons around, providing energy services, being like your mobile phone provider or your cable provider, not producing the content so much as enabling you to store it and move it and share it. So we don't know exactly what sort of company we're getting and how they're going to function. We've been asking, a lot of folks have been asking, can you share your plans? But absent that, I think many of us are sort of on the fence of whether or not this is a good thing for Hawaii.
Well, it's certainly a great choice for number 3. And it's one that we could have a whole show about, and I hope that we do in the future.
True.
And I'm looking forward to having both NextEra and Hawaiian Electric Company representatives on. Of course, they have been on other Think Tech Hawaii shows, and particularly the Hawaii Energy Show. And so I suggest that our viewers watch those as well to get more information about that.
Good.
But we're going to move on to our number 2 selection, which is the Paris Agreement. Last week we talked about COP21, the convening of meetings of parties in Paris, and the actual agreement. Of course, this is foremost on a lot of people's minds. We've had several shows on Think Tech about it.
Good.
Help us unpack why this is number 2 for Hawaii energy events.
Number 2 for Hawaii for a number of reasons, and it's difficult to overplay this, but I don't want to understate it either. So this was COP21, as you mentioned, which is Conference of Parties since 1992, have been coming together to discuss what are we going to do about global greenhouse gas emissions and reining in the impacts of climate change. So first, understand, this is the 21st time they have met. The last few times have been very disappointing, where no agreement has been reached. And what made Paris unique in December is there was agreement. There was agreement among 196 countries that we are going to do something about this. And so that's pretty much the one takeaway, that we finally have consensus among the countries that this is an issue and we're going to take action. I don't know about your friends, but it's difficult to get 196 people to agree on anything. So the fact that these countries that are so diverse and so different came to agreement on this, I think is notable. there's been some concerns raised about, okay, are there penalties? Is it enforceable? Are there action plans? And those elements are missing. But we made the first big step that we've agreed as a globe to come together to say, we're going to stop this. And details to come, but I think that's why it's number two. This is one of the existential threats to our islands here and islands across the Pacific. So that the fact that we're making progress on this issue is encouraging.
And I think it's also impactful to Hawaii because we are going to be the host of the World Conservation Congress in 2016.
That's right.
Actually, within about 10 months. And it takes place in September.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the stage upon which we step for that Congress, which is going to help move the agenda and be able to look at the framework that was laid out at COP21 for the world that is meeting here to make some decisions about natural resource conservation. It's also going to be an opportunity for Hawaii to highlight our policies and our projects and be able to, frankly, move towards that goal that we've had in all of our state and county plans, which is, from a tourism perspective, being a locus for information exchange and cutting edge issues. So I think we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about number one. We'll be right back with Jeff Mikulina and the Blue Planet Foundation.
Aloha, my name is Kawaii Lucas. I am the host of Hawaii is My Mainland, here every Friday on Think Tech Hawaii at 3 p.m. I invite people who are doing interesting and inspiring things in our community to help us keep it local and keep it real. Tune in any Friday, 3 p.m. and also available on our YouTube channel and my blog, kawailucas.com. Hawaii is my mainland. Aloha.
Hi, I'm Stan the Energy Man, Stan Osterman, and I'm here to tell you about my show on Friday, every Friday, on my lunch hour, 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock here on Think Tech Hawaii. We talk about everything energy and anything you ever wanted to know about energy. So we're full of energy, and we'll see you here every Friday at noon to 1. Aloha.
Energy metering also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that'd be good.
Actually, that's better. Whichever one you.
Okay.
That I
They
think.
tie in.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Hi, we're back with Jeff Mikulina and Blue Planet. We were just talking about the other
So
things
excited,
we want to
we just
make
keep
sure to
going.
get on the show. But we promised to tell you what our number one is, and that is
Maybe
the
a drum roll or
100%.
something, or-
Oh, drrrr. Number one for the 10 biggest impacts in Hawaii is the 100% renewable energy law that was passed with a lot of leadership from Blue Planet Foundation.
That's right, as well as we had great outpouring, as you see in this photo, legislators, there's Rep. Chris Lee and Senator Mike Gabbard, who really spearheaded the effort at the state capitol, which makes Hawaii the first state in the nation with a 100% renewable energy mandate by the year 2045. And there's some discussion there about what the year should be, but we've set a year that's 30 years in the future, which to some is very fast. To others, it's not fast enough. We think we can get there sooner, but nonetheless, we're the first state in the nation with a requirement to reach 100% renewable energy. We're currently at about 22%. Also in this image, if you see on the right side, that's the chair of the Public Utilities Commission, Randy Iwase, and on the left side, the gentleman in the blue shirt is Brian Akealoha. I think he's the head of the local IBEW union. So you have...
And of course you have your boss on there. Who
That's right, Hank
started
Rogers.
Blue Planet.
As well as many other folks. There's Rick in the back row.
And Senator Gabbard and Representative Chris Lee, who introduced the bills.
So again, broad support for this measure. We are on our way. And Hawaii has, again, taken the lead. There are very few places on Earth that have such a requirement. A few places have achieved 100%, but we are the first state in the nation with this mandate.
What's it going to take to get there?
It's going to take all of us coming together. And that's the question that people ask. You know, how are we going to get there? What does that roadmap look like? And to be honest, we don't know what that roadmap looks like. But we do know that technology is changing very quickly. We saw a huge gain in rooftop solar in the past 5 years. Could we see a similar breakthrough with energy storage or another renewable energy technology? But we know what the destination is, and it's going to really shape our planning going into the future. And one important reason that we really advocated for this measure is to make sure we don't make poor planning choices today because we don't know what the end point is. And if you don't know your destination, I think Yogi Berra had something, if you don't know where you're heading, you're going to, end up there?
I don't know.
Yeah. So we know where we're heading, and now it's a matter of just aligning all of our decisions to that destination.
You actually made the point earlier that one of our countdowns was the PUC decision on the power improvement plan, and I think one of the things that may have shaped that intervention and being a little more activist from the PUC was this 100% renewable energy goal, because they have to look at where our goals is, where's our end point that we're trying to get to, and then push the utility to tell us how they're going to get there. And so that questioning may not be really a questioning of the validity of the new utility, whether it's merged or not, but asking them to tell us what their roadmap is and how we can be a part of that. So they're all connected.
They are.
Now, we do have a tweet from Roger Moore, I doubt it, and he asked, what was the biggest setback in energy to affect Hawaii in 2015? So give us a shot at that.
Sure, it's a great question, Roger. And really, I would say it has to be the decision on essentially ending the net energy metering program in Hawaii. Hawaii is the first state in the nation to actually end what's called NEM, or net energy metering. This is the policy that's enabled 70,000 households to adopt solar energy for the roof and become a
one of the things
producer.
that you worked very hard on when you were at Sierra Club.
Sure, that was 2001, 2002 when it was adopted. It really wasn't fully taken advantage of until the prices came down. But through that, I think what makes it a setback is it was an opportunity that we missed. And the opportunity is to perhaps change that program to make it, people have been using the word fair a lot. I wouldn't say fair so much as make it the right policy to continue the success of solar, but make sure that we treat solar fairly in a couple of ways. Time of use rates have been discussed, and combining time of use rates with solar and doing it in such a way where people are compensated for energy that they push out to the grid at varying times of the day, and if they have storage at home, they get essentially compensated at that rate as it changes throughout the day. Really, looking fully at these all of the impacts and the values that solar brings to our grid, brings to the environment, brings to the community, would have been a better outcome.
Doesn't the PUC's designation of 3 different sources, the green supply, for example, try to address that?
It takes a baby step there, but it doesn't go all the way. And the time of use rate is a good example of that, where folks who sign up for that can get time of use rates coming into their home, but they don't get the same time of use if they push energy out to the grid. So making that symmetrical would make more sense as we see it. So fortunately, there's a new phase of examining rooftop solar. Is called Distributed Energy Resources, docket. So this first phase, we're not terribly happy with the decision. We think it's a big setback. People have probably read the news that solar is coming to an end, likely in probably the first half of 2016. We need the new set of plans for how are we going to enable customer choice and keep this highly successful, letting people essentially build power plants on the rooftop to help reach our 100% energy goal, but do it in a fair and equitable manner and make sure everyone is properly compensated for the services and the value that they provide to the system.
Right, which is the job of the PUC. So hallelujah that they're on our top 10
Right.
for their actions as they become much more responsive to exactly those issues.
Right, but I would say it was a setback, and we have more work to do there. Similarly, I think we mentioned before the community renewables program, or community solar, or solar gardens, whatever you want to whatever you want to call it. This has been discussed for years about providing an opportunity for folks who don't own their own home, who, let's say, are renters or live in a high-rise or multifamily dwelling, to be able to invest and participate in clean energy. So across
And tell us how that works.
Really simple, just like a community garden, where you would have a plot of land somewhere else, and you can, tend that land and reap the vegetables or whatever that comes out. In other parts of the country, your solar panel would live somewhere else, and you would get credit for the energy that's produced.
So in other words, a renter or a condo owner might be able to buy a share in that project.
That's right.
And that's one way. I know there are several ways, but I want our audience to be able to understand what are some of the ways we've looked at that for Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. And it could be share in a solar project or a wind project. But what's great about it is you're a renter. You have this essentially that share, but you might move where exactly you're renting from, but that credit moves with you, so it would be deducted against your bill. So just a great, just a new avenue to break into what's probably the majority of the population that's either a renter or living in a multifamily unit, and allow the benefits of renewable energy to reach, all sectors of our population.
So do you think that's going to be readdressed and maybe happen, the program will be established next year?
We'll make sure of it. We think, as you mentioned, climate justice, there's energy justice as well. It's not fair that only folks who have homes can participate in solar. We want to make sure everyone has equal opportunity to participate.
So as we take the sneak peek into next year, you've mentioned community solar, and you think that's going to be, definitely it's on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think its prospects are for being on the top 10 next year?
We are going to do our hardest to put it on the top 10. This is, so a docket has been open, the process has begun, legislation was passed in 2015, but it's really up to the regulators and the community to come together and say, this is a priority.
So the legislation, just to be clear, passed in order to set up the framework or the program, but now the program, the regulations and the setup of how this is going to be implemented has to occur so that it can then be adopted.
That's right. So that's before the Public Utilities Commission.
Okay, I think we have another Twitter. What was the Jeff? Oh, Ben Sullivan, thank you. Jeff, for the Grow Green 8 show?
Mm.
Okay, go ahead and see if
Yeah.
you can read that. Are we too
So
focused on
too
the
focused
grid?
on the grid to the detriment of other clean energy like ground transportation. Thank you, Ben, for that segue, because when we're putting this top 10 list together, we were thinking of transportation is not on this list. Aside from our King Street bikeway, which is a success story that actually was put in place in 2014, it was difficult to think of something that really merited inclusion in a discrete sort of event. But Ben, this is 2016, and you're talking about looking forward. We need to really turn our sights to ground transportation, and particularly where ground transportation complements the grid and renewable energy. Huge opportunities there to use electric vehicles to help smooth out the ebbs and flows of renewable energy throughout the day, and to do that, demand response and storage and other things. And then opportunities with hydrogen as well. I saw that Stan Osterman has been on the show a few times. That could be a big opportunity to, again, pair up ground transportation or all forms of transportation with renewable energy that we have in the grid. So I think there will be much more focus on transportation in 2016. We have a mandate for renewable energy on the grid. Do we need to look at a similar sort of requirement for our ground transportation and getting that 100%?
And maybe
renewable?
this is something that Blue Planet can work together with Hawaii Green Growth, and Ben is one of the leaders of Hawaii Green Growth, and to bring that agenda to the forefront for 2016. So thank you, Ben, for that question. I want to get back a little bit to the kinds of things that Blue Planet is doing. We know now what your actually three agenda items are going to be for 2016. Mm-hmm. But I want to close our show with some of the things that you've been doing that are very innovative as well. When did you start the Pulse? I want to talk about the Energy Pulse that shows both our current time energy use as well as the production mix, where our energy is coming from. And we have a slide for that live interactive
Great.
project that you put in place, and tell us where those are and how people can
Sure.
access it.
So this has been running for about a year. This is a partnership with Hawaiian Electric Company, where they're providing the real-time data of how much energy we're consuming here on Oahu, and then the generation mix, how much solar, how much wind, how much coal, how much oil. So it's fun to watch. Anyone can go online, islandpulse.org, and watch that. And then we also have some kiosks
Slide.
that are out in the community. So here you can take a look. This, I believe, was yesterday. But nonetheless, islandpulse.org, you'll see a similar screen, and it'll rotate through where it says current energy mix through a few different slides. Here it shows the breakdown around noon yesterday. It wasn't very windy, only 3%. And then you see 9% solar. That'll vary between 0 at midnight up to maybe 17, 18% in the middle of the day. So fun to kind of geek out on and look and watch it, how it changes throughout the day. You can see coal. Coal is still a substantial chunk of the energy mix, and that's, I think, something that we're going to look more closely at in 2016, whether or not coal really needs to play a role in our future.
And then I just want to show the last slide, which is where our energy trajectory is going. There, we had a bar chart showing with the Hawaii Renewable Energy Law of 100%.
Sure, but this is kind of interesting as well, if you want to pause
Sure,
here
go
really
ahead.
quick. We did some market research and asked over 600 homes how they felt about energy and the cost of energy. And the thing to highlight here is that tiny red sliver. The vast majority of folks support clean energy and looking at the balance of all of the aspects of energy, not just price. Only a few, 5%, said that price is the most important attribute of energy. Most want it balanced with jobs and community and environmental impacts.
So our people in Hawaii are helping to push the agenda because we're willing to set price aside as the #1 indicator for how we make energy determination or energy decisions for our policy.
We think
and
so.
I think that's a great message to leave our audience with, that we're innovative, we're creative, we're looking at all aspects of impacts of energy and climate change as we make decisions for our island state. Thank you, Jeff, for being a leader in this, and I hope you'll come back and join us next time.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Aloha, everyone. Mahalo.